when you first started working in radio, I know you started in South Carolina, but when you started in radio, what were your expectations?
I didn't have any expectations because I honestly, I wanted to be an actress. I wanted to be a sitcom actress. That was my dream. And because I was in Florence, South Carolina, I didn't really have, I didn't know what to do. So I went into Yellow Pages and I looked up acting classes, and the only thing I could find was at a place called Baldotti's School of Modeling, and she just is just a little old modeling school. I had connections with people in New York, LA, and in Atlanta, but while I was at one of her conventions trying to get discovered by an agent, I met the owner of a radio station who thought I would be really good at radio, and said, he wasn't from Florence where I live, but he said, I know the general manager of WJMX, and I want you to call him, tell him I said for you to call him and say that you need a job in radio. And that's what I did. I was only 19 and kind of naive and didn't realize that's not how radio works.
Right.
but it worked. And yeah, he hired me, and I was 19 years old, and it was just kind of like, I wasn't planning to do it. It was just fun, and I really enjoyed it. And apparently it was, my destiny, because I've been doing it ever since.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And like 25 years after being on Kidd Kraddick show, and it's over 30 years?
Well, I'll be honest, I'm 52 now. And so I started at 19. So I came to Dallas in 94. So it was 25 years in Dallas.
Okay.
You'd have to do the math on.
Right.
Everything else.
They said there'd be no math. But are you surprised to be going so strong after so many years?
That's the thing. When Kidd asked me, when he was interviewing me for the job, he's like, where do you see yourself, 5 years, 10 years from now? I was like, I don't know. I just kind of go with the flow. And I've never had a long-term game plan. I often ask myself, what if I had I don't often, but I have asked myself, if I had a plan, if I had a strategy, where would I have ended up? This is all just by letting things happen naturally. I've never really had a long game plan. Is that the right word? A long game? Is that, I'm trying to use a sports analogy, and I'm not doing a good job.
But you didn't have a long-term game plan.
No, I don't. And I still really don't. I mean, my husband and I just launched a new brand, an online clothing business, not to do instead of radio, to do along with it, just because it's something fun to do together. I'm doing it with my daughter. I'm doing it with my husband. And it's just, a new creative outlet for me, because, doing the same thing for decades, you need to kind of freshen it up every once in a while. So a little over 2 years ago, I started a podcast with my husband. And now I'm doing this clothing business with my husband. So keeping busy, just justifying my interests.
Awesome. Yeah, a lot of people just rely on, like, the radio thing is cool, but it's 4 hours a day and 5 or 6 if you show prep. So there's so much of the rest of the day that you can do with yourself. So smart.
Yeah. And, there's only so many, trips to the mall and lunches with the girlfriends. But my days are really, really full. And when I got married to my husband, he brought 3 children to the marriage. Now I've got 4 kids. So it's, it's gone from being a single mom of 1 to a bonus mom with, 4 kids. So we're real busy, but I like it that way, because I know one day nobody's going to want me to show up. So I'm happy people want me to show up right now.
That's great. How would you describe the chemistry that you and Kidd Kraddick had when he was alive?
Well, it was like a radio marriage. It really was. We spent more time with each other than we did with any other, relationship. So when he died, it was like I lost my radio husband. I felt like a grieving widow. And, but it was very much like that. We acted just like a married couple. We didn't have sex or anything, just like married people. But, we fought like, a married couple. We loved each other. my biggest thrill was when I made him genuinely laugh. And he would say the same thing, that when he could make me genuinely laugh, he knew that was like a huge thing. And, it was just a great chemistry, and you can't recreate that. It has to be, you could have chemistry with other people, but that was really special.
Right. How did you manage to establish yourself as a brand talent without overshining the star of the show?
Well, the thing about Kidd was he let us shine. That was part of his magic. He didn't always have to have the punchline. He would let us have, he set us up to shine. And so I never had to fight for a joke or fight for, I didn't have to fight for my moment. He would give us our moments. Right. So he was very generous like that. So I didn't have to struggle to shine because he allowed it to happen.
After his passing, how did your show change?
Well, we had to change because, up until then, Kidd really called all the shots. He decided, the bits we were going to do. He wrote so much. He was really into writing. He loved script writing, and he would, do characters and all these things, which, we didn't do all that. So we had to pick somebody to be the captain of the ship, who was going to run the board, take the phone calls, deal directly with the producers. And a lot of people assumed that would be me, only because I had been there the longest, but that's not a role that I wanted. I've never wanted to be, the one in charge. I think my best work is when I'm supporting. I like my supporting role. Being a supporting player is a powerful role as well. I didn't want to person commanding the ship. So JC, I felt like, was the logical person to move into that role. So I told JC, I said, I think, I went to him because it was also such chaos right after Kidd died. And I told him that I wanted him to, to do that. And I went to the bosses and I said, I really want, this to be with, JC's gig. And of course there was some talk about bringing in another host, but we didn't want to do that because, again, how can you force chemistry? It's, we already had our chemistry. We were already family, and we'd already lost Kidd together, and nobody else could understand what we were going through except the four of us. So we wanted to keep it that way, and thankfully it worked out.
Have you always been that self-aware? Because a lot of people would be tempted to try it, even if it's not a good fit, just to kind of, like you said, because it was logical. Is that a trait you've always had, is self-awareness?
Yeah, I think I know my strengths and I know my weaknesses. And, my ego didn't need me to be in that spot. My ego has been so satisfied. I've had so many wonderful things happen. There's nothing, I don't need to prove anything to anybody. And I'm very, very proud of my supporting role. And I think I do it really well. So that's just, I'm really happy staying there. And I'm just really thankful that it worked out, because, if they brought in another captain, another leader, what if he had chemistry with another girl better? And he'd say, well, I want my own person. And then I'd, before long, I'd be hitting the curb.
Right.
But,
wow. Have you ever thought about striking out and doing your own show? Because I know you used to do your own show, but have you ever thought about doing your own thing, especially after the passing of Kidd?
Not like a daily thing, maybe more of like a syndicated type. I do love letters to Kelly, and there was a time that we tried to do love letters with Kelly and Matthew Hussey. I don't know if you're familiar with Matthew Hussey. He's that British relationship expert.
Oh, okay.
And yes, we tried to do that. That kind of didn't really work out. So I'm not opposed to doing something in addition to the Kidd Kraddick Morning Show, but not leaving the Kidd Kraddick Morning Show to do it. So if it's something like a syndicated type show, the podcast thing has been a wonderful, wonderful thing, because I'm still me. I can be a little bit freer and looser with my husband. It's, different because he's never done radio before. So it's been really fun exploring the podcast world with him. And we're talking about maybe branching off and doing another podcast in 2020. Not me and my husband, but me and someone else,
Okay.
Because that's, with podcasts, you can record them 2:00 in the morning or whatever works for your schedule, and I kind of like that freedom to just do it when we can.
How did the
But I'm not leaving the radio.
Okay, very clear on that.
Yeah.
How did the idea for A Sandwich and Some Lovin' even come into existence?
Well, our boss, George Laughlin, he started a podcast group. And he was looking, because he sees the wave of the future and where things are going, and podcasts were really starting to pick up. So he was going around first to everybody in our office. He was trying, like, the people in the back, the people who are our production team, the interns and people like that. He went to them first because they all want to be on the radio. And so it was their chance to shine and show what they could do. So he said, if you want a podcast, I'll give you the forum for it. So he started doing that in the back room with all of our supporting players. And then he started coming to me saying, why don't you do one? And I was like, no, I just don't want to. I didn't want to for the longest time, because I was like, I don't know if I want to commit to that type of work, because it's almost like another full-time job. And then when I was engaged to be married, he started, hitting on my husband to do one too, my future husband at the time. And so we're like, well, let's just try it. And if we like it, we'll keep doing it. If we don't like it, that's, we just won't do it anymore. And 2.5 years later, we're not just doing one podcast a week. We're doing 2 episodes a week. In fact, tonight, we're recording another podcast. We record on Wednesday and Sunday nights.
Okay. Who came up with the name?
We both did, working together. I mean, I don't know if I think it might've been me. I'm not 100% sure. We were tossing around a lot of ideas, but I'll take credit for it. Why not? It's based on it's about blending families and relationships and about that sort of thing. And basically at first we were going to call it like something along the lines of Ruth and Boaz. I don't know if you're familiar with the Bible story about Ruth and Boaz.
Yeah.
But George did, because when we first started dating, we were going to Sunday school, and that story was just such a beautiful story. And we felt like it kind of reflected a little bit of our story, but George thought that reference would be lost on so many people. So that's when I started, just tossing around different ideas. And the whole idea about A Sandwich and Some Lovin' is that, women are super complicated. We need to discuss feelings, and we want to know, motivation behind why did you say what you said, and let's dissect it, and let's get closure. And men are just like, I just want food and sex, and they're happy. So we couldn't call it food and sex, so we called it A Sandwich and Some Lovin', trying to be a little bit more delicate.
Right.
But that's the premise behind it. But it's really funny because we have a logo, and it's, hush Larry, it's a sandwich plus a heart, it's like a piece of bread plus, and people are like, what does that mean? You love carbs? What does that mean? So whenever we wear our hats, we get to explain, no, it's our podcast. And yeah, it's really kind of cute.
Does your husband have any experience in broadcasting before this?
No, he worked in marketing. He was the head of marketing for Lennox Heating and Air, the national company.
Okay.
And he'd really just gone as far as he could in that role, but he had to do a lot of presentations, for like big conventions and things like that. So he was used to public speaking, but he'd never been on the radio before me, but he's done really great. He just took to it naturally. And so he does all of that with me now, two times a week.
He sounds really comfortable. So that's why I was just curious if he was actually a broadcaster, because he's very natural, and that's hard to teach. So either you have to do that. Yeah.
I think he's more natural on the podcast than he is when we put him on the radio. He just seems a little bit more comfortable, because when it's just the podcast, it's just the two of us. Right. And, we've developed this little podcast family. We mostly record it live on YouTube. And so we have our regulars that sit in there with us, and we've really become like a family with these people. We invited them to go on vacation with us last year. We had like 40 of them go with us.
Wow.
And yeah, so there's like a real comfort level there. But when we do the radio, and I think there's that in the back of his mind, there's, like there's millions of people listening right now. So he gets a little bit more self-conscious. I think he's still good, but he's way more relaxed on the podcast.
Do you ever offer him any tips, or do you just kind of let him do his own thing?
Oh no, I tried that, and that's it's like, no, you know how that works with men. You can't tell them nothing.
Right. They know everything.
Right. It's like, I just let him figure. You try to nudge him gently in the right direction.
Right. Does your daughter have any desire to go into radio?
Every once in a while. She's grown up in it. She doesn't know any different. It's not really even that big of a deal. It's just like what I do. And I don't even know if I don't know. I don't think she's interested in being in radio right now. All she cares about right now is TikTok and being a TikTok star. She would love to be that's their whole world right now.
Yeah.
But I don't know. She hasn't really ever. I mean, when she was younger, she'd say something every once in a while, but I don't think she's that interested in following me into radio.
But now you guys have a business together. How's that going?
Yeah, it's going well. We've only literally, I think tomorrow might be the 30-day. Honey, is tomorrow 30 days for the business? Yeah, tomorrow's 30 days. And we are learning as we go. And so we haven't really done a huge push because, like I said, there's a danger in being a little bit too successful too quickly. And I don't want to ever disappoint anybody and not be able to fulfill, orders and things like that. So we started off really kind of slowly with that, but I wanted Emma Kelly to really take ownership in it. So I took her to market with me, and she picked out a dozen pieces. They're her pieces, they're her selections. And I think if she takes, it's one thing just to slap her name on the business and say, it's like any business, like Sanford and Son or whatever, you just put their name on it. It doesn't really mean anything, but I want her to take ownership in it and be proud of it. And so she's 13 also,
There's that. Yeah.
half the time she didn't want to look at me, much less do a business with me, but it does give us something fun to do together. And it's fun to see her get excited about a project that we can do together.
That's great. So you've had a chance to see a lot of talent come and go throughout the years. Is there a personality who does like nights, or not nights, but like overnights or weekends, or just someone who's an intern who you've noticed, who you think has potential to be someone great in radio?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's hard now because radio has changed so much. And there's a part of you that almost, as an old seasoned radio veteran, wants to discourage somebody from doing it because it's hard. But like I've always told everybody, if you're passionate and you have a love for it, there's nothing I can say that's going to talk you out of it, right? You're going to go for it because that's just what you're destined to do. And honestly, a couple of people we work with, Anna on our show, Anna Castillejo, she just goes by Anna C because that's a hard last name to wrap your mouth around, but she's now become a bigger part of our morning show. We're kind of integrating her in a little bit more. She is just a natural talent. I think she has the potential to be a great stand-up comedian. She's a great writer. She's got a good sense of humor, and she's just smart about what works, It's like she's got a real good sense about that. So I like Anna, and she's part of our team. And then part-time Justin on our show, he is just this ball of energy and light and positivity. He needs to be harnessed a little bit. He needs to be reined in a little bit, because sometimes when that energy is so out of control, it can get you in trouble. But if he can just learn how to focus that energy, and I think he could be a really great radio talent. And, we used to work with Elena Davies, and she left us and went to go do Big Brother. And she is really, I've told her, I said, you're one of the most talented people I know. But she's got a podcast right now that she's working on. But Elena Davies is really great too. I think those are three people that have a good future in broadcasting if they choose to stick with it. You know,
Right.
the problem is, you know, the money is so bad when they're first starting out. And I've had a lot of people that started with us and they were really good at what they did, but they'd get married and they'd have families to support. And they're like, I just can't afford to keep doing radio.
Right.
And, you know, when I first started, before I got the gig in Dallas, I was working 3 part-time jobs and living at home.
Wow.
But I was doing radio and I loved it. And it didn't bother me because I was doing what I wanted to do. I would have worked 10 part-time jobs. It didn't matter. Because I love doing it so much.
Right.
But, you know, if I had a mortgage to pay, if I had children to put through school and, you know, could I have done it? I don't know.
Right.
So, but like I said, if somebody's passionate about it, they'll find a way to do it.
Well, what about, I know you mentioned Anna doing stand-up potentially. Have you ever thought about doing stand-up or even doing more with acting?
Let me tell you, I have had so many people, and the one that I really took seriously was Ricky Smiley. He has pulled me aside a number of times and said, you've got to do stand-up comedy. And I'm just like, I don't have that desire to do that. The thought of it makes me want to throw up. But, you know, he's like, that's why you should do it. That's why you should do it. He has been so encouraging to me to give it a try. But yeah, I have been over the years told numerous times that I should try stand-up comedy. But honestly, I don't have the desire to do that. I don't know. I don't know what would have to happen to tip me over, but I've had enough people who are really good at it tell me I could. But man, that's the absolute scariest thing I can imagine doing in life. You know, it's one thing, like I said, I'm really good at being a supporting player and I've got stories to tell and you start a story, I've got one to come at you. But if I had to stand up there by myself for 10, 15 minutes and command an audience, and oh my God, I get nervous. I can't even talk right now. I get so nervous just thinking about it.
Right. That's funny.
But I appreciate that they think I could. That's very, very flattering.
Like you said, from people who are good at it, for them to initiate the conversation is awesome.
Exactly. It's like that man that told me you should be in radio. I never even thought about it. But, you know, I was 19 and I'm like, all right, I don't know any better. So I just, you know, I wanted to be an actress. And that obviously didn't work out. But, you know, in a way I get to act every day. Sometimes I don't want to be there. Sometimes I want to be home in my bed with my blanket over my head, but I act like I want to be there.
Exactly. So, Real Housewives of Dallas, if you were offered the chance to be a cast member, would you consider it?
No. It was presented to me in a very delicate way when they were getting ready to do season 2. Wow. And I just said no. And I mean, I just, you know, on the radio, Larry, hush, my dog. I just can't. I mean, it's one thing on the radio. I'm kind of bold on the radio, but I'm not going to just confront somebody over an issue at a wedding reception just because, you know, I've got to make good TV. And we went to Leanne Locken's wedding in Dallas, and we kept getting, people kept sending me screenshots. There you are. And so I told my husband, I said, let's sit down and watch the episode. And we watched it, and, you know, we were at the wedding and we saw how it was edited. And we're like, well, that didn't happen. Well, that's not really how it happened, you know, that kind of thing. And then there was another married couple, and they were at dinner and they were having a fight, and it was awful. It was awful. And then you see the kids that are being brats, and, you know, my daughter's a brat too sometimes, but she's not on TV yelling at me that she hates me. And then, you know, what happens is those kids on social media are torn to shreds. Yeah. And, you know, then Brandy has to get on and defend her children. It's like, why would I sign up for that kind of grief? And again, at this point, it would just be, you know, it would be ego driven. And my ego is so completely satisfied with what I've accomplished in my career that I don't need that stress, and I wouldn't put my marriage through that.
Well, especially if you have a good one.
Yeah. Well, why would you? I mean, I don't. I mean, the only reason I could see doing it is if there was I think every woman goes on there now and thinks they're going to be the next billionaire Bethany Frankel, honestly.
Mm.
And so you've got all these women going on there and they're, trying to do their side hustles and stuff. And that's fine. I mean, I shouldn't be judgy. I'm trying not to sound judgy, but at what cost, at what price are you willing to really risk a marriage and embarrassing your kids? And you see in the gossip tabloids what these people are going through. And it's like, is it really worth it?
But then on some cities they have like someone who is normal and like the voice of reason. So I don't know. It's just funny. Like I thought you would be so good because you'd bring like the fun to connect them and maybe like get rid of all the cattiness. But yeah,
maybe. But you know what? The cattiness is what people tune in for. And I see somebody like Stephanie. Stephanie does a really good job. She's like that voice of reason on Dallas, and she's sweet and people love her. But
right.
there's some embarrassing stuff that she has to do too. And I just don't know. I don't know that my husband's like, no.
Okay. Well, that makes it easier. Yeah.
But ever since season 2, I haven't been approached again. It was just, they haven't come back to me since then. And I doubt they will at this point.
Okay. Wow, that's cool. So if today was your last day on the air, what would you want your legacy in radio to be?
Well, I think, I just, the thing that I've really been very cognizant of this year is so many people, because I don't know if it's just because it's been my 25th year and we've been talking about that somewhat, but people just come up to me and I'm just a part of their memories. And I just think that's such a blessing. I have women come up to me and they say, I remember riding in the back car with my mom on the way to school every day. And now this is my daughter and she sits in the back seat and now we're doing it together, So I'm a part of some people's best memories. And then we hear from people who say, I remember I was speaking at an event a few months ago, and this woman came up to me and she was smiling, but she had tears rolling down her face and splashing off her shirt. I mean, she was crying hard, but she was smiling. And she said, I just want you to know my mother loved your show so much, and she was battling terminal cancer. And she said every day we would listen to the Kidd Kraddick Morning Show because we would laugh, we would forget about what we were going through. And it was just such a lovely, it was such a great distraction for them to take them out of the nightmare that they were living through. And so that's the thing I think I want my legacy to be, is just, I want to be a part of people's best memories. And that's really, really been very special for me to hear, especially this year.
Wow. That's priceless. Like who would ever think, yeah, you're just on there entertaining people, but you're really being a part of their life in such an intimate way.
And we're just talking, half the time we're talking nonsense, but it makes people laugh. It makes them forget what they're, a struggle they're going through. I'll never, ever forget when Kidd was still alive. We had a guy write a letter and he told us that I was just like, I still get upset thinking about it. He said he was going to commit suicide that day. And he had driven out to a field and he had the gun and he was going to kill himself. He said, but for whatever reason, he decided to turn on the radio one last time and listen to us. And he said, we made him laugh. And he realized if he could still laugh, that he could still live. And he did not kill himself. And I'm like, that is powerful. And
wow.
I'm probably sitting there fussing at Big Al about something, or kids making me mad and doing the Kelly's Wrong dance or something. But that moment, as silly as it was, whatever it was, he didn't say specifically, but that was enough to make him realize that there was still joy in his life. And so, I mean, that kind of stuff, man, that gets you. At least it does me. So I love being a part of stuff like that.
Oh my gosh, that's so beautiful. That's amazing.
I know.
Wow. Well, I just thank you so much for taking the time out. I have such tremendous respect for you and your talent. And just as a woman, to see that you can be married and have kids and like, have a career. Like, I just love everything you represent, whether you mean to or not. Like, I think
Well,
it's just really important for women in the industry to see that you don't have to have one or the other. You can have a family and you can have a great career as well.
you can, and sometimes it takes time. It doesn't always happen on your schedule. It happens on God's schedule. You know, I was married before and it did not work out, and I was a single mom for what, almost 10 years. And but I was good with that. I was in a good place, but I'm really happy to be where I am now. And you can't always have it all at the same time.
Right.
But you get it when you're supposed to have it.
Exactly.